Welcome to the Rummage Report for April 25th, 2026. Today's topic is RAF jets shoot down Russian drones over Ukraine in NATO first. Sam Balance kicks us off today.
Hey, folks. I just read about this incident where Poland shot down some Russian drones that crossed into its airspace. It's significant because it marks NATO's first destruction of Russian assets since the invasion of Ukraine started in 2022. This isn't just a story about military tactics. It's about how these actions can affect our daily lives right here at home. You see, while the US is somewhat insulated due to our domestic energy production, escalating tensions like this can still lead to energy price spikes. If NATO and Russia keep pushing against each other, it could disrupt supplies, which would hit our wallets when we fill up our tanks or heat our homes. Sure, we might not feel the direct impact of drones flying over Ukraine, but the ripples can reach all the way to Ohio or Texas. And yes, while the defense sector might see some job growth, it's not like most Americans will notice a change in their day-to-day lives. It's more about deterrence and keeping our allies safe than any immediate threat to us. What do you guys think? Am I off base here?
Sam, you're right that escalating NATO and Russian tensions can affect everyday Americans, especially when it comes to energy prices. However, it's not just about potential spikes at the pump. We need to consider how this military posturing could lead to economic fallout that impacts jobs and healthcare costs. For instance, if Europe retaliates economically, we could see job losses in sectors reliant on exports, and inflation could rise on essentials like food and housing due to disrupted supply chains. Plus, those costs hit low-income families the hardest. We need to think beyond just defense jobs and look at the broader implications for regular folks.
Sam, you're spot on about the potential ripple effects of NATO and Russia clashing, especially with energy prices. But Jordan's right too. The economic fallout could hit sectors beyond just defense jobs. If tensions escalate, we could see inflation on essentials like food and housing, which would squeeze middle-class families and hit low-income households hardest. Remember, when the government diverts funds abroad, it often means less investment in our infrastructure and healthcare at home. We need to focus on strengthening our borders and ensuring American jobs are prioritized over endless foreign commitments, especially when our own economy is still recovering. Jordan, you nailed the point about how economic fallout can ripple through various sectors, especially for low-income families. But Casey, I think your focus on prioritizing American jobs and infrastructure is spot on as well. The reality is that while defense spending might increase due to these tensions, it often comes at the expense of domestic needs like healthcare and education. If NATO's actions lead to higher energy prices, it could make life harder for families trying to pay for groceries or keep the lights on. So, while we're concerned about Russian drones, we also need to keep our eyes on how this affects everyday Americans back home, especially those already struggling to make ends meet. Sam, you highlighted a crucial point about how NATO actions can ripple out to affect everyday Americans, especially with energy prices. But let's dig deeper into the implications of this military escalation. While you mentioned that defense spending might not touch most people's lives directly, the risk of economic retaliation from Europe could lead to job losses in export sectors, which would hurt families relying on stable incomes. Plus, if tensions rise, we're looking at potential inflation on essentials like food and housing, which disproportionately impacts low-income folks trying to make ends meet. We can't afford to overlook how these geopolitical decisions can have real consequences right here at home. Sam, I agree that the potential for NATO's actions to impact energy prices is real. But let's be clear. The situation with the RAF jets doesn't actually confirm a direct engagement against Russia, which is a crucial detail. This incident highlights NATO's posture, but it also raises questions about how far we want to go in entangling ourselves in European conflicts. We need to prioritize American interests, focusing on our borders and domestic job creation, rather than getting drawn into escalating military commitments abroad. If we keep diverting resources overseas, it can lead to inflation at home, making essentials unaffordable for families across Ohio and beyond.
The conversation. The trio discussed the implications of NATO's first engagement with Russian drones over Ukraine, focusing on its potential effects on everyday Americans. Sam highlighted the risk of energy price spikes and the broader economic fallout from escalating tensions, while Jordan emphasized the potential job losses and inflation impacts, particularly on low-income families. Casey agreed on the importance of these economic considerations, but argued for prioritizing American domestic interests over foreign military commitments, warning that resources diverted abroad could exacerbate inflation and hurt middle-class households. Worth thinking about. 1. How should the U.S. balance its military commitments abroad with the need to invest in domestic infrastructure and social services, especially in times of economic uncertainty? 2. In what ways might escalating military actions by NATO provoke further retaliation from Russia, and how could that impact global economic stability? 3. Should the U.S. prioritize immediate economic stability at home over long-term geopolitical strategies? Or is it essential to maintain a strong international presence to prevent larger conflicts? If you asked me, and remember I'm a raccoon, I'd say maybe we should just stick to rummaging through trash instead of getting caught up in global squabbles.